All right, guys, welcome back to part 2 of episode 2 of the local podcast with anonymous guests. Like always, it's your host Chris, and I'm here with Spencer again, and we're gonna pick up where we left off. Now, the story was the Super One on 80, and I don't know if this was an apartment. Well, explain what it was.
So imagine Spirit Halloween stores, they'll buy out a random department store or a section of one and just
For like 2 weeks.
Set up shop there for 2 weeks. Imagine that, but a human had done that with a shop, like in a plaza, like a storefront.
Mm-hmm.
And so you walk in there and there's just random stuff laying everywhere, random gear everywhere. Obviously, it's literally part of what was a storefront, but so everything's cinder block. They've got like random corners of it set up as rooms, more or less,
mm-hmm.
and there was just junk everywhere. And the person that was staying there, he was
either one of those spicy whites or an older Latino gentleman.
Right, and you're not sure.
You're not sure.
So you don't know just how. You're not sure how allowed he is to use derogatory racial terms or not.
And I'll say what he said because I want you to get canceled.
Right.
But he gave us a tour. Basically, he was living in like 1/4 of Fred's.
Right.
He gave us a tour. He told us where he wanted the cable set up. And he said, oh yeah, by the way, you niggers
don't steal anything.
Yeah.
And we're looking around at everything. We're like, what the fuck would we steal, bro?
I'm like, man, it ain't shit in here but a couch from Goodwill. And a dog that's very skittish.
Yes, there was a dog of some sort of mutt. I don't know what, some sort of mutt was in the corner who was just low growling the whole time. And his little lips are slowly rising up to bare his teeth and then going down. And then he's slowly baring his teeth and he's growling. And Chris is here looking at him, looking back at where he wants to outlet, looking at him, looking back where he wants to outlet, and he's trying to decide, all right, I'm about to get my asshole ripped off by this mutt.
That's it.
At this place. And, this guy is making us highly uncomfortable with that first exchange, not only, but then the whole rest of the time just making us highly uncomfortable, just would not move the dog, would not do anything, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, all right, Chris, we got to go outside. We go outside and we're catching our breath, trying to figure out how we wanted to do it, and we're getting ready to run lines through, and man, the whole time this dude is watching Chris like a hawk.
Watching me like a hawk. Once again, I don't know if he was a Latino or a spicy white.
Right.
He could have been Mexican or Albanian. I really didn't know. And to top all of this off, mind the skittishly bipolar dog, ignore the racist white dude. Aside from all of that, Django Unchained is playing.
And you're wondering...
We can't make this shit up, dude.
Contextually, you're thinking to yourself, what could make this more uncomfortable for us? What could make this worse? And it's just like, you're going out, we're trying to just do our job and get out of there, and the whole time we're like on the roof, we're like running lines through vents because it's literally a part of a business plaza, and so we're like on this flat roof running lines through vents and like going through ductwork and doing all these different things, and the whole time Django's playing in the background, and this dude is eyeing Chris up like a
T-bone steak that he just want to kill and throw in the trash.
Yeah, just like a tiger looking at a slab of fresh meat on a table. It's just waiting. He's just waiting, and you're like, okay, you're trying to be professional, but you're also trying to get the hell out of there, and you already got started, so you can't leave. You're like, I can't just, there's no way to.
This was evening time too, wasn't it?
Yes, it was getting dark outside too. And mind you, this building is at the back corner of the whole plaza where nobody goes. It's towards the receiving area, where only people that would be there driving by would be like a truck. But that's only in the morning. It's getting dark at this point. And you're just waiting. All right, well,
that's when them M-heads was out.
When is that rusty machete coming out from behind his back who's been hiding this whole time? And when is he going to start chopping Chris's fingers off and feeding him to the dog? It was one of those situations, and you don't ever want to be in that situation, but that's the situation as it was, and that was a pretty good one. But you're gonna see some scary people, Fear and Loathing Longview, you're gonna see some stuff. You're gonna see some things, you're working late at night, you're doing an install, and you're somewhere off of 80 and just people just start materializing. It's like everything's cool. You're working in the daylight, and it's just another day in paradise, and you're running your cables across the streets.
Then the sky turns red and all weird shit pops up.
They just start. It's like they rise up from the leaves. It's like Michael Jackson's Thriller, but it's Longview, Texas. It's just like, where did these people come from?
Where did they come from?
They start just stumbling down the street like a zombie, and you got some dude hopping out with the crossbows, shooting him in the head, and then it's like you got a bunch of people groaning, and it's just like, wait a second, did I just get transported into The Walking Dead? You're just wondering, like, where am I? And it's literally like at the drop of a hat. As soon as it gets dark, man, it
just changes. The worst situations I hated being in was working late at night up under a trailer home for somebody that is going to get that internet cut off 2 months from now.
Yep. You're like, why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this? And to add insult to injury, we putting 3 of those outdated HD boxes in the room on top of internet. So her cable bill is going to be north of $200.
Right.
You're doing all this work. You have to run new lines. It'll be detrimental to you to wrap the lines around the trailer house. 1, because it'll take too long, and 2, it's interior rooms. So now you got to drill a hole through the floor and crawl underground. And I don't know what it is about people with trailer houses. Even though I have nothing against those, I'd live in one. But I don't know why that you feel the need to turn the bottom of your trailer home into a storage building.
Right.
/ commune for stray cats and black widows.
/ porta potty.
/ fucking porta potty. Because you're running, something's been wrong with our plumbing. I crawl up under there and there is a leaky pipe spewing out shit.
And they wait to tell you that when you got back up from the first trip under. They didn't tell you that till you got back up. And you're half covered in their own feces.
And their own feces, and because you thought, this is wet under here. Maybe it's just raining from when it was raining earlier. No, that's someone's poop.
Yep.
On your slicker suit.
Or it's too late.
What as cheap as our company was, it was someone's poop on your regular clothes.
Exactly.
Because I don't know if you remember that meeting that time when they said, if you need, we have slicker suits and stuff. I ain't never been offered no. He said he ain't never seen 2 pretty best friends. I ain't never been offered a wet rain, whatever you want to call it, one of those suits to protect me.
Nope. And if you did, it didn't fit.
It didn't freaking fit. So the stuff was gonna find its way inside of there anyway. Now I'll put it like this: the 2 things that made me hate that job were the LOP situations. The Okay, I'll do a 2 and 3, a 3 and 2 or whatever. The LOP working at shit homes, and by the way, this has nothing to do with color because I've worked in. It didn't matter what their color is. If it was just a shitty environment, it was a shitty environment.
Yep, poor is poor. Man.
Yeah, poor is poor. Yeah, it wasn't. I wasn't. Oh, you must have been dealing with a bunch of black people. No, you'd be surprised how many Caucasians I had to deal with who had cat shit and dog shit on their floor. And okay, so those 2 things. The LOP, the crappy homes, and then the payment not going through. Those 3 things, that made me hate that job to its core.
That's nothing. That's the words you never want to hear is when you're taking a payment over the phone, and then you got their credit card in your hand, and you call them and they say that payment didn't go through. And of course, policy was you're supposed to collect it up front. That way, if they didn't have the money, you're not wasting your time doing this all. But
we never did.
Inevitably, pretty much every installer in the history of installation department always did it after they were done. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it was like we want to make sure we can actually do it first, or if it were just nervous or whatever, didn't like the confrontation. I don't know. Everyone had their own reasons, but everyone always collected at the end, and it was always those words would just strike fear into your heart. You call it in, you give them their number, you give them their PIN, you give them the expiration date, and they say, that card was declined, sir. That card didn't go through, sir. And you're looking up at this customer, and they're getting real uneasy.
Yeah, they're getting uneasy.
And you're getting more and more uncomfortable, and you say, run it again?
Run it again, that's it. And I'm black, so every time I told them the card didn't go through, they'd always assume I wasn't even an employee. Never mind the fact that I pulled up in the work van. I got my badge, but you just look at me suspicious and you ask me, well, who's on that other line? Even though when I was training with you and the COD didn't go through, they never asked you, well, who are you talking to, sir? But they'd always ask me, well, who's on that other line?
And they start looking out the window again to make sure that was actually the Longview cable truck.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, well, let me see some ID.
Yeah, man, you know how many fucking times I had to do that? I'll say, hi, my name is Chris with the local cable company. They squint their eyes, wrinkle their forehead. Could I see some identification, please? And this was the time where I had on the uniform.
Right.
I'm going to a door with you where you had on your hoodie covering the uniform. You said, hi, my name is Spencer Berkland with whatever. And they said, oh, hey, come in. I'm like, man, this bitch ain't even got his badge on. And you invited him into your home. I pulled up in the van. I made sure to put it in front of your home. And I got my badge. I have my uniform on, but you still want to see ID. And now you don't trust me because your payment didn't go through due to you having insufficient funds.
Man. Worst situation you can be in.
Worst fucking situation. Now, I've never been kidnapped by a terrorist organization, but I guarantee you that's nothing compared to telling someone their payment of $150 didn't go through.
Yep. Especially after you just wasted 3 hours at their house. That's the worst feeling, man. I did one in Kilgore where it happened, and I was newer, so I wasn't as experienced, and I made a hash of it, and but 3.5 hours later, it was 9 o'clock at this point, and I had to call my supervisor and tell him that I finished the install and the payment's not going through, and the credit card payment wasn't going through, and they didn't have sufficient funds, and now the customer's telling me that they didn't actually think they had to pay up front, and they were going to pay in a month or whatever. And my supervisor, mind you, it's 9 o'clock at night. I probably woke him up, or he was getting some head or something. I don't know, but mind you, I disturbed this man at 9 o'clock in the evening. I'm out here in the sticks of Kilgore fighting for my life, and and you can just hear that he is mentally murdering me, as I'm talking to him. And he said, well, your only option is have them write a check, and that's about all you can do, and it's going to bounce, and they're going to get disconnected, and that's on you.
That's it.
And he said, and you just wasted 3 hours of yours and my time because you could have gotten out of that at the very beginning if you had collected it up front like you're supposed to, which, like I said, we never did.
No.
We never learned.
We never learned our lesson. And it always happened time and time after again. You 2 wall fishes in, it's 4 hours, but the payment didn't go through. Our boss has already called 5 times. Yeah. Do I need to send someone out there to help you? And then you call and tell him, hey, the payment didn't go through. And all you hear him say is, well, all right, just tell him you got to go. Just tell him you got to go. Basically, y'all don't understand how dangerous it is being a cable technician. I'm going to give you the order of importance in American society. You have cable technicians, retail personnel, first responders, and law enforcement in that order, in my opinion.
Right.
And then the military in there some way, whenever we find some oil. But I'm serious. That's probably the most dangerous job in America, being a cable technician.
Man, either their best friend or you're the worst enemy.
How many
could switch at the drop of a hat?
At the drop of a hat. Hey, it could switch at the drop of an LOP, baby.
Mm-hmm. Let them know.
You was cool guy. Oh, you want some breakfast? Can I feed you? And then you looking around.
They're pushing the blunt towards you. They're
That's
like,
it.
Here, take a drag of this.
Come on, hit that weed, man. It ain't K2, I promise. Then you ask them, who owns this place? And they get dead silent.
The air gets thick.
You're like, well, I need LOP because I noticed they put new siding on the outside. So I need an LOP. And he get his homeboy to call. And you know his homeboy. You're like, man, that's Chris. Like, oh, I'm sorry, man. I guess you ain't going to be able to do it. But I do miss, it did have its good days. No, it didn't have its good days. I take that back. It didn't. The best part about it was hanging out with you, Marcus, Joel, and everybody whenever we got the chance to.
Right. That's part, honestly, what I would say too is the
camaraderie.
The best, yeah. You're in a common situation. You're fighting a common battle with you, and it's like I said, that's true of any job, but this is a different kind of job. This is you're going out here in the trenches of the worst parts of Longview or the best parts of Longview.
Best parts.
I mean, that's the thing about cable that people don't really think about or understand is the difference in your day. It's at one point in the morning, you can be
out on Tryon.
Yeah, I mean honestly, I've had jobs or days where I had a job over off of was Turtle Creek or whatever off of Adrian, which is off of Tryon, and it's, every house out there listed on Zillow is minimum like
600,000.
That's more than that. Like we're talking like $1 million minimum out there, and that's in Longview, mind you. $1 million in Longview.
Turtle Creek, the gated one, I'll try on. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's a milli minimum.
Yeah, so you're looking at these houses on Zillow. They got like 9 bedrooms and this and that, and you're out here. They're making you put boot covers on just to walk on their hardwood floors. Mm-hmm. You're just trying so hard not to get sued every time you look at them. Mm-hmm. They just. It's just one of these the situations.
It's stressful.
Like, it's very stressful, and then your next job is over on Tammy Lynn in Spring Hill.
Woo!
You walk in and you're slipping on cat pee.
Mm-hmm.
You land on your elbow in a human diaper. There's like, you're stumbling over someone's children mm-hmm. on the floor that's rolling around in their own shit. They're blowing smoke in your face as mm-hmm. you cough and choke your way to the outlet. You're just trying to get out of there.
And it's a makeshift daycare, by the way. And the overseer, the grandmother, she's cursing out a bill collector.
Right.
While this kid is picking up her cigarette butts and chewing on them.
Yep, they're in the background. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm screwed, huh? So I'm screwed. And you're just like, man, it's Fear and Loathing Longview, man. That's it's something you'll never understand until you've done it.
Yeah, you gotta do it.
The difference between the wage disparity in Longview especially is quite shocking because
you don't know it until you work in the service industry.
Yeah,
though.
and if you're not familiar with the East Texas area or you're from elsewhere, Longview, Kilgore, East Texas area in general is hereditarily, it's been an oil field area, right? So
mm-hmm.
Kilgore had an oil boom in the 1920s and whatnot. So a lot of people came down, and a lot of people started oil companies or worked in the oil field and started their own businesses out here. And most of that's dried up and has gone to Midland and West Texas, but mm-hmm. A lot of the companies that go operate up there are all still based out of here because that's where they started. And
mm-hmm.
so that means that a lot of the families out here have old oil field money and they're filthy, filthy rich. Flip side of the coin, you have other people here that, because oil field is really the only primary industry we have out here.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's just the normal stuff like retail and working at the mall or dumb stuff like that, or if you're
some monotonous low-paying job.
Yeah, so it's either monotonous low-paying jobs, or maybe you got lucky and you're a lawyer for all the people that get arrested out here, mm-hmm. or whatever, or you're rich oil field. So the difference between the poor and the rich is like could not be any more clear.
Yeah,
and it's like, I mean, I've installed for people that literally got were out of prison the week before, and you're over on 1501 Young Street, and you walk in, one way out, Bel Air Apartments, and everybody's eyeing you up as you walk from your truck to the door. They're trying to figure out either, do we need to beat him up? Is he coming to harass one of our friends? Mm-hmm. Is he here is he cutting one of our neighbors off? Do we need to jump him? Do we need to go through his truck? What do we need to do? You're just wondering the whole time you're there, you're getting eyed up. But then, like, at the same time, in the same day, I went to a customer over off of Bill Owens, and after talking to him,
515 Young Street, goddamn.
Man, I realized one of my customers over off of Bill Owens somewhere, I don't even remember where, he was, I was talking to him the whole time, and the whole house was filled with, like, sports paraphernalia, just different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't really think anything of it because we got a lot of sports fans out here a lot. But in any case, we were talking. I'm working on his internet, trying to make it work right. It was running slow and different things, and I'm doing all my different troubleshooting things. I'm talking to him here and there, and he seemed like a real nice dude. His mother-in-law was there; she was real nice. And being a rugby player, I'm very obnoxious when it comes to rugby, right? So I'm always talking about rugby to other people. I'm always trying to get people interested in it, explaining the rules to people, mm-hmm. trying to, just trying to talk it up, because in East Texas, rugby is very unknown, of course.
You're the Jehovah's Witnesses of a rugby fan.
Exactly. Yes, I am.
You're a rugby witness.
Exactly. Gotta let the people know the good gospel of mm-hmm. rugby. So, anyway, so I was dealing with if I'm talking to an athlete, I'll usually find a way to sneak it in there, and I'll just, it's just, like I said, it's a habit. So, I'm talking to this guy. He's pretty tall, pretty good shape, whatever. I'm just talking about whatever, and he was talking about how he missed watching sports because of coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, I really miss it too. And I'm like, perfect opportunity. I miss watching rugby. Mm-hmm. And here we go again. Old dickhead McGee Spencer's here talking about rugby again. some poor unsuspecting customer who just wants his fucking internet to work. So anyways, we were talking. He's like, yeah, I miss watching sports. And I was like, I miss watching rugby. And I was like, and then, one thing leads to another. And I'm like, I said, I don't remember how we got to the point where but it came up organically. And I said, yeah, I play rugby still. And I play over in Shreveport or whatever. And I'm like, I was like, man, you're in pretty good shape. You should think about rugby sometime or whatever. You do really well. He's like, oh no, I don't think so. He's like, I'm kind of committed to baseball. I was like, committed to baseball. I was like, and I haven't picked up on it yet. And I'm like, baseball, like but rugby, that's a man sport. You should play a man sport. Rugby's real tough. Of course, I'm giving it a hard time, but I'm like, come on, rugby's a real man sport. It's tough. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm just kind of committed to baseball. I play baseball, I played a lot. And I was like, well, where do you play?
Turns out this was Derek Jeter. No, I'm kidding.
I didn't realize it until now. The biracial angel.
The biracial angel himself was in Longview, Texas. That's funny.
Nah, but, and so I'm giving him a hard time. And anyway, I said, he says he plays baseball. And I was like, oh, so I literally say, you play City League, I guess, because we got a lot of City League softball here. Like, you play City League? He's like, no, I play for the Mets. And the room went silent. I was like the Mets? He's like, yeah, like, the Mets, the ones in New York. I'm a pitcher for the Mets in the MLB. And I was just like, I just told the professional baseball player to play a man sport and told him he needed to play rugby without knowing it. And sure enough, after I finished, I looked him up. He's a pitcher for the Mets. Lives in Longview, Texas because because of course he couldn't stay in New York anymore. I mean, he wasn't practicing with the team because of the COVID restrictions, and so he didn't see the point in staying in New York when his mother-in-law and sister and brother-in-law, I guess, all lived in Longview. Brother-in-law was a D1 football linebacker. He was gigantic. I met him too. I won't say what school because I don't want to give away his identity, but in any case, he played for a D1 football school, nationally successful football school, and then his sister played for their volleyball team. And I was just like, and here I am, I was just laughing because just that morning, I'd been, running cable through a house with, where I'm stepping through the floorboards basically, and, my foot's going through the carpet. And now here I am making fun of a professional baseball player without knowing it, telling him he needs to play rugby.
Bro, East Texas, I can't speak. Well, really, I don't want to speak of any other place because this is the only place that's important to me. Fuck you and wherever you are from. But East Texas is the only place where a white guy with his wife and 2 kids can either be living at those trailer parks across the street from the old elder school in Kilgore or literally in that community off Tryon Road. Was it Tryon Road?
Yeah.
The big gates. What's the name of it?
Turtle Creek.
Yeah, Turtle Creek. The same white guy, same age, early 30s. You could either be living there or across the street from the old elder school. You don't see anything like it. I don't know about anywhere else, but this place is weird. It's like, I don't know. East Texas always felt like the Twilight Zone to me. Because you'll meet a girl that talk about how she went to Paris on spring break. But then you'll meet some other kid that said, oh yeah, we got evicted for the 8th time this month. How do you get evicted that many times in 1 month?
Seems statistically impossible.
It seems statistically impossible, but it is. I mean, this is a very unique place. You either hate it or love it. Most people hate it, but they never leave for whatever reason. And when
private company excluded.
Yeah, private company excluded. But when they do leave, they come right back because they went to some dumbass place like in New York or Los Angeles and realize rent's $2,900, and they can't sell enough ass to make that note. So they come back here and they work at Dillard's. Speaking of that, you talk about the coronavirus. What do you think about this mask mandate and stubborn Americans? We just can't get it right, can we?
Can't come to a consensus. And the problem is, here's the problem. As Americans, we're very fond of our personal freedoms.
Our personal freedoms.
That's kind of what, our whole shtick has been, is personal liberties, personal freedoms. You can't tell me what to do because I'm a free-ass American. And that's my God-given right as an American. So here's the thing. Anytime the government hands down a mandate or an order, it's going to be met with a significant pushback from the American people because we value our individual rights, freedoms, and liberties so highly. And the disconnect is most people, you can argue about the effectiveness of masks, this and that, but I mean, there's a reason why surgeons and doctors and everybody wears masks every time they're performing surgery. There's a reason. They help. They may not be 100% effective, but you got to remember, like, people are saying, oh, they don't stop bacteria and they don't kill. That's not what they're meant to do. They're just supposed to stop the droplets of your, when you're exhaling and when you're sneezing or whatever. It's supposed to prevent them from traveling as far, because no, it's not killing germs. It's just preventing them from spreading as far because it's acting as a buffer or a mask from it. Anyways, so people may argue that or that, but this or that. But the argument is, can the government make me? Should the government make me? That's where the disconnect is.
Yeah.
So let's just assume we all think that masks do help, right? Let's just assume we all think that. Not everyone does, but for the sake of the argument, we'll say that everyone thinks that masks help. Okay. So the argument is, should the government make me, or should it be my own choice if I'm risking getting infected, right? Because typically, so I would, identify primarily. I would probably identify as a libertarian, and not even getting into politics, just saying that just because I am politically conservative and socially liberal, so I want less government involvement,
right?
Like a conservative person would, but I want more social liberties for people, like the right to choose, furthering the rights of LGBT people, right, or people of color, things like that. Black Lives Matter movement, things like that. I support those movements, but politically I'm conservative. So I personally am very torn on the matter because I don't want the government to tell me I have to.
Yeah.
But I also think that
this is an unprecedented time.
It's an unprecedented time, and I personally do not have enough faith in the American people to do it on their own.
Yeah.
Because let's say, outside of politics, I personally believe everyone, when in crowded areas or doing things like, they should be wearing a mask, right? I personally believe that, and I think that it's the right thing to do, and it's the considerate thing to do for your fellow man, because what it boils down to is people say you don't have the right to tell me what to do, and I should be able to take the risk, and that's true to an extent. Yeah. You should be able to take your own risks, because the government stepping in to act as your sole and only protection is never a good thing, right? Because then you lose your rights and your liberty and freedom to make your own decisions. Okay, that's fair, but here's the problem. This is an unprecedented time, like Chris said, because it's not just me. If I go and I get exposed to it and I get infected with it, it could take up to a week for me to show symptoms. Yeah. I'm not wearing a mask, so I'm going around and breathing and spreading it to countless people, who knows who, because it can sit on surfaces for a long time. It'll travel through the air, different things, and I could be exposing countless other people. So yes, I'm not at risk. I'm a relatively healthy man in his mid-20s. There's a 90% chance that I'll survive it. There's very little threat to me. But the problem is, it's not just me. And like being a libertarian, I believe in legalizing all drugs. So I should be able to go buy some heroin and go.
You should really be able to buy heroin at CVS.
Right. You should be able to go buy heroin at CVS and go inject it up your butthole on your own property.
In the Starbucks bathroom.
While shooting a machine gun, while making out with your gay husband. Like, you should be able to do all of that. But
while we talking, that's really Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Vegas all over.
All over. It's global Vegas.
But basically because my core belief in that is personal liberties, right? It's doing what you want to do as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else. So like, I should be able to do drugs, but if I do drugs and go and drive and go kill somebody, then I should be imprisoned.
You should be in prison.
Because my personal liberty took one of your personal liberties away, aka your life in that situation or whatever. Or if I get drunk and I go beat somebody, okay, then you should be in prison, because your personal liberty, getting drunk and being free to get drunk or high or whatever, that was your personal liberty, and that's okay. But then you start taking someone else's personal liberty away, so it should be heavily criminalized, right? When you do that. But the thing is, with something like coronavirus, if you get it, that's your own choice. You risked yourself. You made the choice to expose yourself to it, but then you in turn unknowingly exposed countless other people to it, because you don't know you got it until you got it. Yeah. Until you're showing symptoms. You can have it for a week before you show symptoms. Yeah. So that's where I'm torn on the matter, because I don't want to be told to wear a mask. I don't want to be required or mandated to wear a mask. But I have very little faith in the American people to do that out of their own volition.
And maybe you can call me a communist or a socialist, but what I've been hearing a lot of the Caucasian males say, and then of course their wives repeat whatever they say because they don't think for themselves when they're not paying the credit card bill. Right. But I hear them saying, "Oh, this is how communism starts. The government tells you what to do. This is where our rights get taken away, and we turn into Cuba." I don't believe that'll ever happen in America, to tell you the truth. But I also would like to ask you, do you think socialism could work if the West would give it a chance? And if not, could you let me know why? Like, what would be the pros and cons of socialism? Because we know communism doesn't work.
Right.
Communism doesn't work at all. That's what Cuba essentially is. It's communist. People say it's socialist, but it's not, because in Cuba you can't own property.
Right.
And communism, you can't own property.
Right. It's owned by the state.
It's owned by the state. So do you think socialism could work if the West would give it a chance?
So one thing we have to make very clear first off is that socialism and communism are two very different things.
Two very different things.
And that's what most people, at least in my area, do not understand. Maybe it's a lack of education, maybe it's ignorance, maybe it's willful ignorance, maybe it's propaganda that has convinced them otherwise, be it from right-wing media sources or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Ben Shapiro.
People don't understand out here, at least from my experience, they don't understand that there is a rather large
drastic
difference between socialism and communism. So basically, what that looks like, the ignorance manifests itself as people like, oh, so you believe there should be an increase in social services and trying to take care of people who are sick and can't afford healthcare or whatever, and that's communism. That's not communism.
That's not communism at all.
If you want to see communism or experience communism, talk to somebody who lived in the Soviet bloc in the 1970s or even earlier.
Yeah,
it's
that Gulag area, the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, it's just you can't compare the two. And for example, I studied Soviet history in college, and it was a senior level course on Russian and Soviet history.
I was going to ask you about Vladimir Lenin here in a second.
Yeah, so we studied those things. Covered pretty much everything from like 1700s Russia towards present day and the fall of the Soviet Union. We've studied that. My professor, wonderful man, he actually lived in communist Czechoslovakia.
Okay. Back
when it was at the height of the Eastern Bloc. In any case, he is a pretty conservative Republican person, and he was also very quick to say that there was a very large difference between democratic socialism and communism, because he lived in a communist country for several years. He's an American, but he went out there. I can't remember the situations that led him to live out there. Maybe he was a teacher, I'm not sure. But in any case, he lived out there for several years, and he said just that you can't compare the two.
No,
because communism, you could argue it technically starts with socialism, but I don't really think that's even relevant.
No.
Because what communism basically becomes is just the state controlling everything. What you eat, where you live, it's just
food rations.
Yep, but the thing is, Americans were so heavily and staunchly brainwashed in the 70s and 80s and the Reagan administration to believe that anything regarding to socialism was just communism in disguise.
Yeah, and it's not.
And that's just not the way it is. So when you hear someone like Bernie Sanders or other left-wing politicians talking about socialism, they're not talking about giving the state full control over every aspect of life, which is what communism boils down to.
Yeah.
They're talking about what's called democratic socialism.
That's it.
Which, it's, whether you agree with the policies or not, what it boils down to is using taxes towards social and cultural advancement, as opposed to going and getting oil from Saudi Arabia or waging war.
And disguising it as protecting our freedom.
Right. So and of course, the fear is they're going to raise our taxes and this and that, which is probably true in some cases, maybe not in other cases, but that's kind of beside the point. At its core, democratic socialism, the purpose of it is to further social services and to help people in need. And of course, different people have a different idea of what that looks like or who deserves it. Because the right wing of the bird is, well, if you don't work, you shouldn't get anything, and this and that, and they just believe that people on welfare or different things are just a bunch of freeloaders, which there are those that exist. There are people that are like that, But I think most people would rather work and make money than would live in squalor with a small amount of government assistance, you know?
Right.
There are definitely exceptions to that rule. Like I said, there are people that would prefer to live in squalor and not work. There are people that would prefer to live off of the EBT card and food stamps, whatever. There are those people, but I think if most Americans felt the opportunity to be taken care of and have a job and work, they would prefer that.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, like I said, people hear socialism and they think it's just, better dead than red. You know, it's the next step to communism and becoming restarting the Soviet Union, but it's not that way at all. And if you talk to someone who has experienced communism, they'll say absolutely communism doesn't work, and they don't believe that it would ever work in the Western nation. But they'll also say that socialism and communism are two different things.
See, and that's why there was a large Republican voter turnout amongst the Cubans, because when they come over here, you can scare them into thinking that this is what America's going to turn into, where you came from, and immediately you're going to vote Republican.
Right, because we don't want more communism.
Yeah, we don't want more communism, because it does suck. And this is where it puts me in, where I always get put in hot water. I don't support the Soviet Union. I don't support any of that, what it turned into. Now, would I live in Russia right now? Yeah, I would. And upon doing more investigative research and reaching out to people who live in Russia, whether that be white people or people that look like me, they say it's really not what you think. You should come over there and visit. The government is not a reflection of its people. But what I do support were the beginning stages of what Vladimir Lenin was trying to do. He was trying to empower the proletariat.
Right, the worker.
The worker. So that part, and I think that was socialism, what he was trying to do. And then Joseph Stalin may have came up under it and misconstrued everything and turned it into a totalitarian state. But that beginning part of what began, where Tsar Nicholas and his whole entire family was murdered, because if they would have just killed one, then power could have been transferred.
Right.
And then we would have kept this imperialist backwards country going on. So that part of the Russian Revolution, I do support, because I like the ideology of putting the power back in the people's hand.
Right. And Leninism was founded on the belief that people aren't separated by nationality or race or belief, but they're separated by their financial and class. Their classes. But what it boils down to is the class system.
Right.
You're either in the wealthy class, you're in the middle class, or you're in the poor. The poorest of the poor. So that's what people were separated by, and were defined by, as opposed to nationalism. Just that. Country lines or color or belief. Whatever. He believed that people were separated at its core level, we're just separated by class.
By class, yeah.
And so he saw a problem where it was only the very upper class who had any say in anything that ever happened, right? The Tsars, or the whole idea of monarchy basically, or which was more closely despotism probably.
Yeah, that's it.
But he was like, well, the country is primarily comprised of the middle class, the working class,
that's
the proletariat.
The proletariat.
But here we are, and we've been completely controlled, and the country, not just Russia, but the world as a whole is controlled by a very small subset, the bourgeoisie that have been able to take control. And so, you don't. Of course, there are parts of it that we can't agree with. Where eventually it got twisted and turned into just people getting murdered and the gulags
with Joseph Stalin's rise to power.
Right.
Because all that happened after Lenin died of a heart attack. Because I really do think if he would have stayed alive, and maybe someone could have put a cap on Joseph Stalin, they probably wouldn't have had those decades of that rough Soviet Union.
Right.
But of course, his life was cut short. And it was Joseph Stalin's plan all along to grasp eminent domain. And that's what put Russia in that spot for as long as it did. But what I liked the most about the Russian Revolution of 1917 was that the Romanovs were in control of Russia for 3 centuries?
Right. A
long time. 300 freaking years of imperialism. And a lot of people don't know, up until then, Russia was really a backwards country. It was a laughing stock.
Right. They were technologically and socially basically in the feudal ages, just.
And, illiterate. They weren't educated. It was kind of like slavery in America, where only the free whites were allotted the opportunity for an education.
Right.
In imperialist Russia, only the bourgeoisie, I hope I said that right.
That's pretty close.
That's pretty close. They were allotted the education. They were allotted the luxuries of life. And it was just interesting to me that it took Vladimir Lenin, what he said and his ideologies, to put a stop to all that. So that part of the Russian Revolution I always thought was cool. Now the events that transpired after that, of course, we know how bad that ended for a lot of people.
Right, millions upon millions died, millions starved, and
yeah.
But of course, it's like it's very difficult, and so in America, like I said, we got this idea that communism is just the end result. It's just the end result of socialism, right? Like if you have a little bit of socialism, it's just a slippery slope down to straight up communism. People starving and lining up for food outside of some stone warehouse where you get like given 3 scraps for the week, whatever, But the belief is that communism is just the end result of socialism, and it's a slippery slope, right? So it's challenging because we've seen history and what happened when Stalin took over, and someone like Lenin in the Bolshevik Revolution in those times, they had at the heart of it, they wanted to bring back power to the common man, the people that were actually running the country and manufacturing and all of the different things. The average man, like, they wanted to bring back power to, basically, I wouldn't say democracy, but wanted to bring power to them. So, but then you got someone like Stalin who came in and everything becoming controlled by the state, and Stalin, and he was a god to them, right?
Yeah.
So in America, people are like, all right, well, if we allow any sort of democratic socialism, it's just we're a hop, skipping, and jumping away from Joe Biden being Joseph Stalin.
Yeah. And I don't think that's the case.
That's not the case at all. And it's like I said. So for me personally, I want less taxes because I'm a libertarian, I'm conservative, and I want less government spending. I want our military to be shrunk. I don't think there's anything wrong with us being a predominant military power. However, we spend more, like on our Navy, for example, we spend more on our Navy than the next 12 countries combined.
Yeah.
So we're number 1, and then from 2 to 13, all of their military, their Navy specifically, their budgets combined is less than our budget, and almost every last one of those countries are our ally.
Yeah.
So you think about that, and you think, well, Americans are like, well, we just want to be the best. We want to. There's nothing wrong with being the most powerful. I'm like, okay, I get it. There's always going to be a leader of the pack. There's always going to be the alpha dog. But when we spend that much money, but you go somewhere like south of 80 and Longview, and you just see the insane poverty that people are born into, and are, maybe if they had a little bit of help, if there were more programs to help them rehabilitate people, maybe these programs, maybe that would further the American people. But all of that takes money, and when we're already spending billions and billions and billions of dollars on the F-35 project, on foreign wars, on foreign aid. When our own country, we are the richest country in the world, and we have, a pretty significant homeless population. We've got a significant population of people that are unemployed before coronavirus. Before that was the excuse, there were still, plenty of unemployed people. We're spending all this money elsewhere and on foreign aid, on different things, but we can't mow our own grass. We can't mend to our own yard, but we're trying to mend everybody else's.
And that's where I could be accused of being a nationalist, because I don't believe in, I need to donate money to these hungry kids in Mongolia, because there are hungry kids here. And I know that may sound bad. I don't give a fuck if it sounds bad, because there are things here that need to be fixed. I'm not going to send my money to another country when there are things here that really can be fixed.
Right.
Like, I don't believe, and I know a lot of people do it, some girls do it for the Instagram photo, but even going on a mission trip to another country, I know you've done that before, and that does seem cool, but in my eyes, I'm thinking, man, there are places in America that look just like that place.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Right. And that's something you get a new appreciation for, especially working in the jobs we worked in the kilo industry. Yeah. Because if you're if you've only really been exposed to middle class America and you've never seen what the other side looks, you really aren't going to understand that. And because, like I said, we are the richest country in the world. We have the highest level of, people making an honest living. It's just like we have all this power and all this money. And if you're just an average middle class, working class American, you may not have ever even been exposed to the other side. Poverty. Yeah, but there is poverty like you would not imagine. Even here in East Texas and south of 80 and different rural areas, there's poverty like you wouldn't believe. And like you said, I went to Guatemala, and I stopped over in Mexico. I didn't really spend any time there, but I went to Guatemala for a while, and I saw people living. And at this point, I was 18, maybe 19. I'm not sure. I was younger. I was in college, but I was younger, and I really hadn't ever been outside of my bubble. And I went to Guatemala, and I saw all this. It's very happy people, a very positive country. Everyone's very cheerful there, but a lot of poverty, right? It's it's a third world country. Mm-hmm. So you're walking through the streets, and you got people living basically in sheet metal shacks, and there's they got like one or two rooms, and they like cook in the middle of the living room in a giant pot with a fire, and they've got cell phones somehow, and it's like this whole weird, because they skipped the industrial age. They went straight from middle age to current industrialization. They skipped anyways, that's neither here nor there. Basically they're living in this poverty, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. There's nothing like this in the States. And it's just like you're walking around, like people's houses there, they're built from just like makeshift materials and things. And of course, that's not the whole country, but that's where I was at. Where I was at, it was like that for the most part. We went to these different rural villages and went to the schools, and I played with the kids. We did little sports camps for them, and their like lunches and food was like just in like little tiny like plastic bags that were like tied up, and they would just eat them, drink them, then just throw them on the ground and just trash the place because they just didn't. It was just like they're so poor they don't ever think about the future. They don't think about. Anyways, all that to say, I saw that, and at the time I'd never been exposed to that kind of poverty in the States, and I thought, okay, well, wow, we have it really good in the States, and they have it really bad in the third world countries. And
then you start running cable on Green Street.
Then you start running cable on Green Street, and you're like, wow, there are people that
don't have running water.
They live almost the same reality people in a third world country do, but they're in the States. And you drive a couple streets down, and you're in front of a mansion, And so it's when you're an average middle class American, and you've never experienced that level of poverty, you're going to lack a certain level of perspective and empathy. Because you think, well, the only people that are poor are people who deserved it. Basically, people that are lazy, people on welfare or whatever. And you just get this kind of, you don't have the perspective to realize just how some people are struggling, how people are born into it. Because these people that are living in that often have multiple children. Yeah. And then be that for a lack of contraceptives or just a lack of whatever, that's neither here nor there, but they have a lot of children and they're born into it, and then the cycle continues. And so that's where someone that would be maybe identified as a socialist or democratic socialist would say, hey, how do we help these people? Maybe, with government assistance or programs or, education, whatever, how do we help these people? But the average American who has never seen that doesn't understand that and says, well, anyone who's poor is a freeloader, because we live in America, which is a land of opportunity, which is true. We do have a lot of opportunity here, but
we also have a lot of disadvantages, too, that can affect someone for generations.
Right, and it's not always a level playing field. Just like we were talking about earlier, and, previously we were talking about, Black Americans in East Texas versus opportunities Black Americans have in Atlanta. It's just so much of what your opportunity is also has to do with your birth. And technically, yes, someone, we hear all these stories of rags to riches and people, but not everybody has that opportunity, and not everybody has the knowledge for that. So, I can kind of see where someone who is more left-leaning towards a democratic socialist ideology is coming from, because until you've seen it, you really don't understand. And most people have not seen it. Like I said, I grew up pretty low class, I guess, house was ridden with cockroaches and mold, and we didn't always have, we often had to live off of ramen and greasy chicken, whatever. My dad would come in and say, all right, we have to borrow from y'all's kids, the money y'all had saved or little allowance y'all had, to pay for the bills, and you know you're not getting Christmas presents, and you know whatever, you know. Not telling a sob story. I'm just saying, like I grew up pretty humbly too, but even growing up as humbly as I did, I still didn't know what poverty looked like. You know, compared to the average, you know, middle class American, I was probably under the poverty line or at it, but that wasn't true poverty though, because I had a house with the electricity worked. You plugged into an outlet and it came on. You know, we had running hot water. You know, we had most of the time had food. You know, and so I too had that view where I didn't think that true third world level poverty existed in America, but it does, and it's right around the corner from you. You don't know it, but it is.
Yeah,
it's right around the corner from you.
Even Flint, Michigan, they didn't have clean drinking water because of the pipes.
Years.
And you say, well, why don't you just move? You know just as well as I do, that's not easy.
Right.
There's a lot involved in, I'm just going to uproot my family and move.
Right.
It's just not a hop, skip, and a jump. You know, and I wish people would understand. I think our biggest problem, we don't cross the aisle and communicate.
Yeah.
With each other. And communication is key to making anything work. Because look at a relationship when you lack communication, it ends.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I think the way to improve, and I'm not bashing America, this is a great place. I'm happy to be from here. And I wouldn't want to be from anywhere else. But I do think a lot of our problems could be solved with communication. Because communication is key. Communication and action. Because how many times do you see this guy from this circumstance talking to this guy from this circumstance, with the exception of them cursing each other out on Facebook?
Right.
How many times do you say, you know what? Let me take you out for coffee. I want to get a better understanding of your perspective, and I want you to get a better understanding of my perspective and where I'm coming from, and maybe we can meet in the middle.
Right.
I think if we did that, that could solve a lot of our problems, or it'd be a start at least.
Right.
You know?
And I feel like one of the number one things that holds back America as a nation is the unwillingness to discuss and disagree and hear other opinions, because you know, you see it on both sides, but you know, we have this concept of censorship nowadays where people get censored and lose their freedom of speech if they're disagreed with, and you know, people get shut down. And here's the problem, you know, so let's just say the stereotypical example of like someone who's highly liberal is shutting down someone that they believe is using hate speech from the right wing side. Okay. So here's the problem. Even if that person on the right wing is wrong and is using hate speech, which we don't support, but even if they are doing that, how are you ever going to change his mind if you just censor him and
cancel him?
You cancel them and don't allow them to have a talk. You don't allow them to talk and don't encourage a dialogue between them. How are you ever going to change their mind? If you just cancel them and just basically remove their right to talk and say you don't want to listen to it, they're just going to become even more and more entrenched in their ways. And if you really want to get through to somebody, you have to talk to them. You have to have a dialogue.
Communication is key.
Right. You know, this Kendrick said, they say communication save relations, and I can tell, you know, because it's like, look, I'm never going to get through to somebody by telling them to shut up. You know, if you say something I disagree with, and I disagree with it to the point where I feel like I need to change your mind, which is rare, but it will happen, you know, I'm never going to get through to you by shutting you up. Yeah. I'm going to have to talk to you and have a dialogue with you and a productive conversation with you, because that's the problem with that I see primarily coming from the left right now.
They don't want to hear it.
Right. And it's like, you know, so I personally support the movement Black Lives Matter, okay? Yeah. And that's a very, very controversial thing to say.
And I was going to ask you about that.
You know, it's a very controversial thing, but here's the problem. There are people on the right wing that say, hey, we believe Black Lives Matter, but we don't support like Black Lives Matter for this and that reason. I'm like, okay, I disagree with you, but I'd also like to hear what you have to say, because I've got my own perspective on it, and I think that maybe you should change your mind, but I'm not going to, but rather than saying you're just hateful and this and that, I'd rather hear what you have to say so that we can talk about it.
I want to know why, because when I first started hearing this, and what was it, like 2015, 2014, Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, when Ferguson and the other one, Baltimore and things, and those shootings happened.
Upon hearing that statement, in my head, me being a Black American, I just heard Black Lives Matter. I didn't hear Black lives are the only lives that matter. Right. So when I heard Black Lives Matter, I just said, I agree with that. Right. But I think when maybe a white American hears that, they think you're trying to cloud every other ethnicity. Right. And you know, maybe you could elaborate on that, but when I hear that, that's what I thought. Oh, Black Lives Matter, they do. I didn't think they were trying to say, oh, these lives are the only lives.
Right, they're the top,
Yeah.
Before. But that's the thing is people take that, so people such as my dad, they think, when they hear Black Lives Matter, they're, for whatever reason,
all lives matter.
They say either all lives matter, or they say, well, okay, well, why do Black Lives matter more than my life? Now you're just being reverse racist. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my God, dude, no one said that.
No one said that. All I said was, hey, we have a voice too.
Right.
That's what I feel. That's what I think. And I just don't know why that's such a trigger for white people when you say Black Lives Matter.
And I don't understand that either, because at its core, if you're a white person that's saying all lives matter, by definition you mean every life matters, right? Every race, color, whatever. Well, the problem is right now in America we see that Black lives aren't at the same, they aren't treated the same way. They aren't black people aren't treated with the same treatment that other people do. So that means that they're at a lower level than the rest of all these lives that you say matter. So by definition, all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter too.
Until Black Lives Matter too.
And that was never postulated as a Black lives are supreme to white lives to yellow lives, whatever. And by the way, blue lives don't matter. Because blue lives don't exist.
You can take that uniform off.
Right. You can't take your skin off when you get home, but you can take the uniform off and you're just another person.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not saying that cops are. I'm saying that blue lives don't exist.
Yeah.
So you can't say blue lives are. I'm sorry. Being a police officer is not an ethnicity or a racial. That's just a job you worked.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. That's just that. I just gotta get that off my chest. There's no such thing as a blue life.
Yeah, it's not blue life. People use Blue Lives Matter and being a Trump supporter as a personality, and it's really getting old.
Right. There's more. And what are you gonna do when? Look, Trump already lost, so what is your personality going to be now?
What's your personality now?
There's
voter fraud. How long can you say that?
Yeah, because that's what it's been for the last how many years.
Trump.
It's just what if that's your personality? That's pretty unfortunate in the first place. But what is it going to be now that you have to replace it with something? Because that's irrelevant now. I'm sorry, unless But of course, I say that, and they still fly the Confederate flag. That only lasted 4 years too, but that's none of my business, though.
Yeah.
But but like I said,
and that's the losing team.
Yeah, but it's like you said, when I first heard Black Lives Matter, when it first came out. To be fair, I have to be honest. When it first came out, this was 6 or 7 years ago, and I was in a different place, and I had a different understanding of everything. I hadn't gone through as many life experiences I have now. I hadn't gone through school. Hadn't worked in the job I do now, but I wasn't against it, but I didn't support it either. I was just kind of I was uncomfortable with it at the time because all I saw on the news at the time was people wearing Black Lives Matter shirts while burning down a city. And I was like, okay, so that's all it is, right? To me, but I didn't oppose it, but that's just how I felt. But then
you understood why they were doing
it. But yeah, so flash forward a few years, and at the time I didn't put much thought into it, but this time around, when we had the George Floyd protests and everything, and people were saying Black Lives Matter again, and different things were happening, and I was like, but I saw it differently this time. And for me, I have a much easier time than I guess some people do with separating an ideology from certain actions. So like you said, when I hear Black Lives Matter, I think, okay, we're saying that Black lives are important, they matter because it's, there's a lot of different metaphors that are used, but think about going to a breast cancer awareness rally, and you're a man who had was it colon cancer or prostate cancer? Prostate cancer, yeah.
That's what gets us the booty cancer.
So yeah, we get the booty cancer. It's God's great curse for man.
Yeah.
Anyways, so imagine being a supporter of awareness for prostate cancer and going to protest a breast cancer awareness because they're taking the spotlight from you.
That's what I'm saying.
That's why would you would never do that, would you? Unless you're the most unreasonable person alive. But that's what it boils down to in America is people are protesting a protest. What kind of whack stuff is that?
That makes no sense.
You're going to go protest a Black Lives Matter protest or go I joined the Black Lives Matter protest in Longview, okay? And we were walking down 281 in Longview, and we got people driving by cursing us, screaming at us, whatever, people screaming, go to job. But meanwhile, I just got off working 12-hour shift at the cable company, but whatever, fuck me then. Anyways.
Yeah, you ain't important.
Then you got people that are driving by and then pull out their Trump flag and they're like, wait a minute, it's like as if Trump, as if there was a battle between people believing Black Lives Matter and people who vote for Trump. Like, what kind of shit is that?
Oh
like,
man, it's weird.
It's weird. It's like these people are in East Texas. They're equating voting for Trump and being Republican as not only their personality but also being one side in a battle. Yeah. The other side is the evil Black Lives Matter people who think that black people shouldn't be shot in the streets for existing. And it's like, how are you going to pit that as a battle? You know, like, that doesn't make any sense.
And you hear a bunch of different defending reasons. Well, white people, there are more white people that get killed by the police than black people. Okay, but I need you to understand this shouldn't be happening to anyone.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get people to understand. It's not more white people get killed by the police than black people. Okay, if that's true, it shouldn't be happening. It should not be
right, and
happening.
how is it always you jump to defend the cops before you jump to defend anybody else?
Yeah, and then call yourself a conservative.
Right. And then you go and you say, I'm going to stockpile my arms and, you know, protect myself and defend the Second Amendment to protect myself from tyranny. And but the tyranny you're talking about is the state, the government, the police. Yeah. But that's the same people. You've got the back to blue, no matter who or whatever. I back to blue in the firefighters too. In your front, you know, yard. You got the sign. You got the Blue Lives Matter sticker on your car. And then at the same time, you're like, I'm going to make sure I have my guns and stuff so I can protect myself in case the government gets out of hand.
Yeah.
But then the government killed people and you're supporting them. That's the government getting out of hand to me. What other Western country do you know? You ever heard of cops going and gunning down people in Germany, in England, in Spain, in France? Do they do that? No. When was the last time you heard about that?
When was the last time you heard about that?
Like, come on. Like, how can you say that you are against government overreach and against the totalitarianism?
But it's happening.
But it's literally happening before your eyes.
Before your eyes.
You're seeing it happen. You're watching history in motion, and you're seeing it happen. And the irony is not lost on me, but it's lost on a multitude of people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It's fucking sad. And all I'm asking for from white people, I'm not asking you to apologize for slavery. I get tired of hearing that. I didn't own slaves. Well, you also weren't a Confederate soldier, but you still fly the flag. You know, right. You see how stupid that sounds? Slavery was hundreds of years ago. Get over it. Well, the Confederacy was over 100 years ago. Get over it. Put the flag away. The general himself said that flag should be put away forever. Right. I'm not asking for any of that. All I'm asking for is a better understanding of each other.
And like I said, the separating the movement and because Black Lives Matter is not an organized group.
That's what I'm saying. It's a statement.
It's a statement.
It's a statement. How could you not agree with a statement like that?
Right, and it's like it's the same thing as in the debates when they asked Trump to denounce alt-right groups.
And he didn't. Twice he didn't.
And it was as simple as saying, I don't agree with
that
alt-right groups, but he couldn't say that.
Couldn't say it.
Just like people can't say that Black Lives Matter because they think that Black Lives Matter is a organized group, and they think that Antifa is an organized group, which it isn't, by the way. Antifa is just there are organized Antifa members, I think, but it's not like some kind of group with a leader that they go out and they go out and train and practice and they go and no, it's not like that at all. Black Lives Matter is even less organized than that. There's not an organization behind it that is gathering, you know, members that are like sworn into this, you know, group.
Yeah, it's not a corporate entity yet.
Right. It's just it's a statement and it's a movement. And yes, you can. There are people that have like been kind of like deemed as leaders in the movement, but there's no such thing as like there's not a chair of Black Lives Matter. It's literally a statement saying that Black Lives Matter because that hasn't been said before
because
the way it needed to be
they
said.
haven't mattered.
And they haven't mattered before to the level of other, you know, races in the country.
Yeah.
So that's what will never cease to confuse me, is not only is our, you know, far right and Trump supporters basically pitted in a war against Black Lives Matter, or to their mind they are, but also comparing Black Lives Matter to like or considering it to be some kind of organized group that goes specifically to Wisconsin or Ferguson or Baltimore or Dallas and goes and burns the city down.
Yeah. Because
if you watch the live streams from the riots, from the protests and things, it's never someone marching to the street saying Black Lives Matter or, you know, whatever, you know, chanting these things that's going and, you know, smashing windows and they're it's like you'll watch a stream and there'll be people marching through the streets, and then just people with masks will just run up out of nowhere and go and smash windows and steal stuff and then just run off. Mm-hmm. It's not like there's a big group of Black Lives Matter soldiers all sworn in and with their duty to destroy the city that come in and invade and then go smash a bunch of windows and rob and steal and burn down targets and stuff. That's not how it works at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might see somebody wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt or whatever committing a crime, and that's unfortunate, but that's not a reflection of the movement of people in America saying, hey, Black lives do matter. That's not a reflection of that, because it's not an organized group. It's just a statement.
It's a statement, and it's a positive statement for me as a black man.
Right.
You know, our lives do matter. All I want is for white people and black people to talk to each other and get a better understanding of each other. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and when Bigfoot and them lizard people come out and kill
Mark
us.
Zuckerberg's people.
Yeah. They don't care that, oh, he's black, he's white. No, it's time to annihilate everyone.
Right.
Speaking of that, do you believe in Bigfoot?
Bigfoot.
I don't think he real, and if he is, he a bitch. So
well,
that's my hot take.
He ain't never shown himself, so
he pussy.
Yep. If he real, he's a bitch.
You know what I'm saying? So Bigfoot, if you're listening to this, I don't respect you. And you pussy. And if you want to shoot the frail one shirtless on 281 in front of any restaurant, preferably Bubba's, hit my line.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say.
Either show up or you fake, man.
That's it. Hey, either show up or you fake. You know?
All I can say.
Watch him get on Facebook Live later. Hey, Chris, where you at? I'm here.
I heard you had some words for me.
I heard you had some, and I'm not going to show up because now I'm pussy.
Yeah.
But on that note, Spencer, thank you for your time. I know time is valuable. It's something you can't get back. I wish you all the best in Atlanta, and I hope we get to have a conversation like this again.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And it was a blessing for you to be here. Hey, Spencer Berkland, ladies and gentlemen.